Hello, my name is Janice Kamrin, and I'm an Associate Curator in the Department of Egyptian Art at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I hope that you are staying safe and well during these challenging times. Welcome to this week's Curator's Cut, a new series for members and patrons, and one of the ways we are working to bring the Met collection into members' homes around the world.
I've become fascinated by the burial assemblage of an ancient Egyptian priestess named Ankhshepenwepet. She lived sometime around 700 BC, during the 25th Egyptian dynasty, a period when kings from Nubia, the land to the south, ruled over Egypt. We are extraordinarily fortunate to have most of her burial equipment as part of our collection. Here you see it displayed in our Gallery 126. Ankhshepenwepet's tomb was excavated by our own Egyptian expedition in the 1920s on the west bank at Thebes in the sacred bay of cliffs at Deir el-Bahri. The tomb was near the temple of the female pharaoh Hatshepsut, who had lived about 800 years earlier. This archival photo shows one chamber of the rock-cut tomb as it was found by the excavators. You can see here that the coffins had been opened and the mummy taken away sometime in antiquity, so we have no idea what Ankhshepenwepet might have looked like or how old she might have been when she died. The most essential elements of the assemblage were the coffins. The massive outer coffin you see here is the one element of the ensemble which was not given by the Egyptian government to the Met. It in turn enclosed and protected this beautiful inner coffin, which was made of wood, covered with textile and paste, then painted in vibrant colors. The texts and images were carefully chosen to guarantee Ankhshepenwepet's successful transformation into an effective spirit who could participate in the eternal cycle of death and rebirth, identified with Osiris, principal god of the dead, and Re, the sun god, images of whom you see here in other objects from our collection. In this detail from the coffin lid, Ankhshepenwepet's heart is weighed on a scale against the feather of Ma'at, symbolizing the proper order of the Egyptian world. If the scales balanced, that meant that she had lived an ethical life. If not, her heart would be swallowed by this monstrous creature, and she would die forever. On the coffin, the trial is of course successful, and she is led by the ibis-headed god Thoth into the company of Osiris. On the sides of the legs are rows of gods, there to protect Ankhshepenwepet's mummy during the dangerous period of transition from death to eternal life. They also are there to provide never-ending sustenance. On the chest is the sky goddess Nut, wings spread to shelter Ankhshepenwepet's mummy. The presence of this goddess, mother of both Osiris and Re, helped to guarantee Ankhshepenwepet's rebirth. A jed pillar on the back of the coffin represents the god Osiris, god of the earth and the netherworld that lies beneath it. Together, Nut as the sky and Osiris as the earth envelop Ankhshepenwepet in a miniature evocation of the Egyptian world. On the inside of the lid is another figure of the sky goddess Nut, and in the base is the goddess of the west, the land of the setting sun and of the dead. Together, they reiterate the microcosm within which Ankhshepenwepet wanted to spend her afterlife. On the top of the head is the hieroglyph for horizon, the signs for east and west, and a scarab. This beetle represents the rising sun, pushing a sun disk with its forelegs and holding a shen ring, symbol of infinity, with its back legs. The image here evokes the daily journey of the sun and was meant to ensure that Ankhshepenwepet would travel with the sun in its ongoing cycle of death at sunset and rebirth with the dawn. Ankhshepenwepet was wealthy enough to include additional objects in her burial. She had 4 solid limestone jars, carved to imitate vessels that would have held separately mummified viscera. The heads represent some of the same deities found on the coffin lid protecting the mummy. She also had 2 wooden boxes that held hundreds of small magical figures called shabtis, who would work on her behalf if she were called upon to carry out agricultural tasks in the afterlife. This mummiform figure represented the ancient funerary god Ta-Sokar Osiris, who himself had died and been reborn, and whose presence was meant to reinforce Ankhshepenwepet's own eternal resurrection. At At the foot of Ankhshepenwepet's coffins was a gazelle. How and why this graceful creature joined her for the afterlife is unclear. Was it her pet, as the original excavator suggested? Ankhshepenwepet bore the title Singer of the Residence of Amun, which tells us that she was an important priestess serving the cult of the king of the gods. Gazelles were sacred animals in ancient Egypt. Was this gazelle somehow associated with Ankhshepenwepet's profession? Before ending this video, I want to mention the work I am doing with our objects conservator, Anna Serrata, and two of our fellows, Chantal Stein and Vera Rondano, to explore various technical aspects of Ankhshepenwepet's burial equipment. One of the most interesting findings we have made so far is that the coffin was decorated after it had been closed, with the mummy inside. I hope you have enjoyed meeting Ankhshepenwepet. Although ancient Thebes disturbed her burial and took away her mummy, we can still try to help her live forever by remembering her name. Thank you for all you do for the museum, for the arts, and for our communities from home. Stay safe.